is actually a property mastermind group, and what we intend to do here is actually have a collective group of people that will share knowledge and ideas. Obviously, I'm going to be here as the property mentor to actually help you and answer any of your questions that you may have moving forward. Now, it's not just on this event today, but it's all future events. We're also going to have a number of other key speakers that are experts in their field, whether it be HMOs or property developments. A lot of the key speakers that we actually have at our live events. Now, a lot of these live events we have that some of you may or may not know are EPN London, EPN Nottingham, EPN Sheffield, where we actually have speakers there. Obviously, we lead very, very busy lives now. So this really has actually been born out of that, because we cannot always attend a live event, actually get into our car, drive our car to an event, get it park up, go into the event. It's nice to go there. I attend them myself, and I've attended them for many, many years, but they do take up your time, and they take up a whole evening. And if you're doing 2 or 3 of them a month, it takes up a lot of time. This actually allows you to actually have all of that in the comfort of your own home or office or wherever you may be. So, as I say, it's all about you. It's a property mastermind group that allows you to actually share, to ask questions, to actually have not just me, but other people here that will be able to help you on your journey. Now, Matt did actually give you a brief overview of myself, but let me share with you a little bit more about who I am. I've been running a company. I've been involved in property now for about 15, 16 years. I set up a company back in 99 called, was at the time called Easy Property Solutions. We changed our name to Earth Property Solutions about 2 years ago. The reason we changed our name, the word easy wasn't liked by Stelios, so we had to change it to Earth Property Solutions. So we are Earth Property Solutions UK Limited. That's my company that I set up, really to actually be the holding company for all that we do, whether it be the mentoring, whether it be the properties, the rentals. It all comes under that umbrella. I'm a speaker and author of 3 books. One of them is the 7 mistakes in property, and you can get a link to that at the end of this presentation. I've also have in-depth knowledge and experience as a business coach and NLP trainer, and I got my NLP masters, if you like, probably about 10 years ago now, with my mentor, a guy called Chris Howard, who I'm indebted to, who taught me a lot. And I'm sure, like many of us who are listening, we have teachers that come before us that teach us what we need to know to move us on to the next chapter in our life. And I'm indebted to Chris because he taught me a lot, not just about how to coach and help people in their journey, but also a lot of things about business and mentoring and coaching individuals within business as well. So that's a little bit about me. I won't bore you with that. You can obviously go online and find out more about who J.Tillyer is. Now, what I would like to do is actually ask you the main question of this evening, and that is, where are you on your journey? Now, a lot of people here are actually at different levels on their property journey. Some are just really wanting to get into property. Some people have actually already been in property for many, many years, and obviously have started to build up their portfolio and probably have got it to a position like myself by where they can now live from their property portfolio, and they're enjoying the fruits of their labor, we shall say. So what I'd like you to do at this point, actually, so I can get an idea of actually who is online and where we are, just type into the chat box how many properties you have. You don't have to over dramatize this. Just, if you've got 1 or 4 or 10 or 20, just put in some numbers so we can get an idea of what sort of level you're at. Because obviously, like every trainer and presenter, we need to get an idea about our audience. So we'd like to know how many properties you are with that at the moment. So while you're just typing it in, I'm just going to have a quick drink here. And Matt, if you can actually just obviously, because I can't see the chat box, if you can actually tell me what sort of numbers are coming through, that'd be great. Okay, so.
All right, guys, sorry about the technical hitch. This is the first live stream we've done, so it's bound to be a few gremlins. David Smith, welcome. Thank you for your patience, my friend. Great to have you here. You know, if you have got property, great. Let us know. If you haven't, it's not an issue. You know, if you're just starting out on your journey, just let us know where you are with that.
Matt, is my audio still coming through?
Your audio is absolutely fine, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and people can still hear me. Great. Okay, if you can just give me a thumbs up, please, in the chat box, just to say, so Matt can see obviously the chat box and the questions you type in, obviously as our host. So, but if you can, please give a thumbs up, just to say that my audio is coming through. Okay.
So David Smith says he's a chartered surveyor, just getting back into property investing. So the first property's under offer. I want to ask David, is that a house or a flat, or are you going into HMOs? I'm just curious about what you're going into. Because I started back 3 years ago. My first property was a flip. Mm-hmm. And
how did that go for you, Matt? That flip that you had, your first property flip.
The first flip, I got it for 68,000. It was an absolute bargain. I got it about 20k below market value, which for my first one was huge. The lady selling it was a motivated seller. Sadly, her mum had passed, and she was looking to pull out her inheritance. So I could buy pretty quickly, so I bought it fairly quick. And I spent, I think it was just under 16,000 on it. And I sold that for 105,000, so that's a real healthy profit for my first flip. Now, Dave's just said freehold turned into flat. Problem, of course, with a freehold, but what's the problem with that? Can I ask? David Smith, what's the problem with a freehold?
So the property that he's buying then, Matt, it's a flat. Am I right in hearing that?
Yeah, freehold down to flat. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, it's a freehold flat. I mean, majority of flats tend to be freehold. You can obtain the obviously flats under leasehold as well. But so this is actually a freehold. So he's actually getting the what I call the ground with the flat as well.
Also, mortgages don't like freeholds, they've just typed in. In my experience, I suppose it matters if it's freehold or leasehold, as long as there's plenty of years left on the leasehold and it works in your favour. I mean, I'm buying a flat at the moment where I'm from in Nottingham, and that's a leasehold. That's still got 940 years left on the lease. So with everything, it's check the legals, check the legal pack. David Smith, do you mind explaining a little bit more about why the freehold's an issue in your case? Because if need be, we can help you now, troubleshoot this deal.
Yeah.
But I've done a couple of flips, and that's where I started. I bought my first buy-to-let back in July, believe it or not. And that's been tenanted ever since August, so we got something really quick, didn't we?
Yeah, that's good. So just want to confirm, Matt, obviously that we've got a few people now online and they're sending in questions that I'm sure once, we've actually spoken with David now, we can maybe move on to a few of the other questions. Because obviously, I mean, it is only roughly about an hour we're going to be online. I want to make sure that all the people that are actually online, type in those questions and send them through to you. You're going to have a chance to read them out. We will, just for everybody who is online at the moment, we will try and get all of your questions answered. I mean, obviously, if there are some questions that you want to ask myself after the actual mentorship program here that we're running, please feel free to actually drop me an email. But the mastermind group, not mentorship, the mastermind group is actually here that they're actually ask for you to ask as many questions as you can, and everybody should hopefully get a bite of the cherry, so to speak, in terms of answering the question. So those other questions that are coming through, Matt, can obviously, you can answer those, as and when we go through them.
Great. So David Smith just said the mortgagee wants to create a new long leasehold and a management company. This is a converted house into 2 flats. So what it sounds like to me is it's currently freehold and he wants to do a title split. Is that correct? Possibly want to split it into 2 separate flats. That would be a leasehold, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, obviously, if David actually obtains the freehold on this particular property, he then has the ability, yes, to actually do what he wants. Yes, he can actually then, do a title split and have then 2 leases. What I've known in the past, and for people to do, is actually retain one of the leases or for themselves, and actually then sell off the other lease, so that actually then facilitates the one that they're holding. So keep one and then obviously sell the lease on the other one. Or you can actually just total split the both of them and actually then run it as 2 different leaseholds. But there's many different things that you can do there. So I think having the ability of a freehold on a flat is a very good position.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we've got some questions earlier what people emailed in.
Yep, for all.
This was from Charlie C. from Clifton. I'm asking about Brexit. How is Brexit going to affect the property market, in your opinion? Because it's getting closer and closer, isn't it? I mean, people are starting to worry.
It is.
I think. I mean, what's your opinions on that, David? Because you've been in the property business now for 20 years, so you've seen the ups and the downs and the crashes and the booms as such. So how do you think that Brexit's going to affect the property market in the UK?
Well, I've actually seen before, property prices go up and property prices come down, and we had obviously the big major crash back in 07, 08, which obviously did affect a lot of people. Even it affected my property portfolio. There's got quite a bit of meat on the bone, so to speak, in terms of it's quite flexible. But at the end of the day, this Brit exit is actually, I think, a good thing, because it will allow people to get some good bargains. It's true what is said, and that is that there's more millionaires made in a recession. I'm not saying we're going to go into a recession, but there's going to be a major change happening here, and it will allow people to actually obtain some good deals. Now, it's not going to suit everybody, but the people that are actually in a position to actually purchase a property or want to get onto the property ladder is going to be a very good opportunity. And people are always going to want somewhere to live, so it's not going to be a case you're going to buy a property and be stuck with it. I think, unless you're buying a property in the Outer Hebrides and, you've got a very limited market, you're always going to be able to rent it out and get a return on it. At the same time, it's good. I'm not a financial advisor, I will say that, but it's good to put your money into property. Or what the advice I give as well, or what I talk about, I must add, is only my own opinion. I'm not giving any sort of advice on finances or anything like that, so these are all just my opinions. But investing in property is a very good option. I mean, everybody knows that. That's why obviously you're probably on the call today. But it's going to be a great opportunity when we leave the European Union, in my opinion, because there's going to be a different playing field. And whenever there's a different playing field, you can have new and interesting things happening. And I think one of the good thing that's going to be happening is that, we're going to have a lot of people that is outside them of the UK, so to speak. They're not in we're not in that European market that still want to come to the UK. Now, whether that be for work, whether it be for education, and it is all about as well choosing the right property in the right area. So you've got to do your due diligence and know where you're going to be buying. But just to really get back to the question, is it a good thing when we come out of the European market? Will property be just as buoyant? I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't got a crystal ball. But one thing I do know, it's going to be an opportunity. And it's the opportunities. If you actually look at an opportunity from the right angle and actually have the ability to take advantage of those opportunities, you will be able to see the gains. So just look for the opportunities that will be arising around those sort of times, and I'm sure you'll be able to reap the rewards from those.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the truth is no one really knows. But the way I see it is the UK has got a booming market at the moment. And with it being an island, we have a finite amount of space we can build on. And with the population ageing the way it is and people coming to live and work here from Europe, property prices are just going to rise, in my opinion, because we have finite space to build on. So it's a case of supply and demand. I mean, I'm sure the supply of properties at the moment is so underwhelmed compared to the demand. That's why the prices are as they are. I mean, you can't pick up a house up for £10. That's why you're paying hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I mean, and this is really coming back as well, Matt, to really moving me on to my next point I wanted to talk about, and that is, do you have a plan? Because when we do come out of the European market, you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan now, but not just now. You need to have a plan when that happens, because the playing field will change, and a goal without a plan is just a wish. So you need to be able to make a plan that is flexible, because things will change. Whenever I work with individuals, and Matt will know this, that I always actually put together based on them, because you're unique as your own thumbprint, and this is about you. But we put together what I call your PPR. That's your personal property roadmap, and that is a blueprint. It's a map, a bit like a business plan if you want, because every successful business has a plan, and property is no different. You need to have your personal property roadmap, a plan of what you need to do. So one thing I would say as well is you need to start with the end in mind. What do I mean by start with the end in mind? Well, you're getting into property for a reason, okay? It's a catalyst. It's going to help you get from A to B. It could be a case that you invest in fine wines, classic cars, racehorses. You're investing into property, so you want to get a return. But when you start with the end in mind, what are you doing it for? That's what you need to be thinking about. Why am I getting into property? It's not just for the money. You're doing it for, maybe you want to put your children through university, or you want to do travel for the next 5 years of your life, and property will facilitate that. But always think about the end in mind and what it is you're looking to do with this. But at the end of this, guys, it's all about the plan, the big plan, and have a plan in place and not just a wish. So that's what I'm really suggesting to people here, Matt, that they need to be putting a plan together. And if you want any help with that as well, guys, just again, drop me an email to info@earthpropertysolutions.co.uk, and I can send you over a template of what I use with some of my mentees, and when we put their personal property roadmap together. But it is something you need to have, I think, because a lot of people that just go on a wing and a prayer, and just maybe get one property and then wait a couple of years and I'll get another one. That's fine. They can move at their own pace. But if you really want to reap the rewards from this, you can put a plan together, and it doesn't matter whether you still have one property a year or one property a month. You still need to have a plan, because obviously there are loads of other things that need to happen prior to you actually getting those keys and renting that property out and really getting the money from that property. Yeah, so you need to work it all backwards, and that's where your personal property roadmap comes into play. And then what you need to do is, obviously, once you've got something working correctly, there's a system in place, you need to replicate that system. But I'm actually just going off topic here a bit too much and getting a bit too much in depth. But guys, even if it's just on the back of a A4 piece of paper, put something down, put some goals down, some bullet points about where you are now, where you want to be, and a timeline. It's very important that you put a timeline in place, because if you've got no timeline of where you need to be by a certain time, you could be doing this next year, in 10 years' time, you could be in the same place. So set timelines on these milestones, okay? Matt, how are things going? Have we got some more questions come through?
Well, this was emailed in earlier by Sarah Watts from Mansfield.
Yep.
She asks, is it better to buy off-plan or to buy houses well established?
Good question. There's obviously always going to be a for and against team for the off-plan that says, you can get it for a lot cheaper than what it is if it's already established. I've actually bought both. I've bought properties off-plan. I've also bought properties that are obviously well established, and I bought plots of land for development. But to answer that question, Sarah, and it is a great question, it all comes down to what's right for you and your circumstances. If, for example, the off-plan property is going to take a year or two, and sometimes they can take a year or two to actually get to a point by where you can start to actually pull some money out of that, then it might work with your timeline. And that also comes back to what I was just talking about, your plan. And also it might be a case that you need to get your money working for you faster. So the off plan, so to speak, that's going to take a bit of time before it's built, and then before you can get it up and running and start to get some money out of it, may not be the right plan of action for you. It might be a case that you need to go to the already pre-built property by where you can just invest in it, get it rented out, get some money coming in quicker. So there is no straight answer, Sarah, for that. It's actually what's right for you at your time and your journey at this time. You need to sit down, and obviously once you put your plan together and think, where do I want to be in 6 or 12 months? I always ask people to actually look at their own individual circumstances over a 12-month period, because even though those milestones can be set, and when I work with people, we do it in 3 months. So we break it down monthly, but it's normally a major milestone would be 3 months, and then 6 months, and then 9 and 12. Things like maybe you buy a property by 3 months' time. So you need to do all the groundwork to actually get there to actually make it work for you. So in 3 months' time, you could have a property and it's renting out and you've got some income coming from it. And then you repeat the process again, or maybe change it that actually it works better for you at that time. But off-plan or on-plan, off-plan or a property that's already been pre-built, it really does depend on your own individual plan, and where you are and what you want to do. Does it fit in with what you want to do in your journey? That's what you need to be thinking about. But as I say, each has their for and against, the rewards and the negatives of both of them. So it's just what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is it right for you? It may be a case that you start with a property that's already established and you can get it rented out quicker and you get some money coming in quicker, then when you've got a few of those, you can maybe do an off plan by where, it does take a little bit longer time. You've got to actually look at your own individual circumstances, but always think about the end in mind. Can you wait 6, 12, 24 months for an off-plan deal to go through, and actually by the time you're going to get some return on investment back out of it? Or is it a case that you want to turn this around a bit quicker? So always think about your own individual circumstances, but each to their own, and everyone is right for whatever they want to do at that time.
You know what, I can't agree more. Okay, we've got time for a couple more questions. Is that okay with you, David?
Yep, fine, go ahead.
Brilliant. This came in from Jack S. He says, what exactly is a motivated seller?
Good question. What is a motivated seller? Someone that wants to sell their property at the end of the day. That's really what it is. It's someone that will actually tick all of the boxes. What I mean by tick all the boxes, someone that is not just window shopping, so to speak. They're not just wanting to say, well, how much can I get from my property? It's someone that is willing to actually do what you ask them to do and work with you on a defined checklist of things that need to happen so you can actually get them the sale. Someone that is also not just needs to sell because they, maybe need to pay off a debt, or they need the money quickly for whatever reason. That's not necessarily a motivated seller. That could be a desperate seller. Now, a motivated seller is someone that is motivated to actually do what needs to be done to get the job done at the end of the day, to push that property through. Now, I've encountered both. I've encountered desperate sellers that just want to actually get the best price they can because they've got a debt and they want to get it moved through very, very quickly. But they don't seem to want to do anything for it. They won't move the process quick enough, even though that they want the money. So a motivated seller, in my opinion, is someone that is actually definitely wants to sell. And they can work with you on a defined journey that can actually get that property through at a pace and speed that suits both parties. And that really what a motivated seller is for me, someone that's going to work with you, and you can work with them as well to actually help them to get to be where they want to be. Yes, they're going to have a time limit as well, but it is more about, as the buyer, you do control that a little bit. And it could be a case that normally, it could be held up with solicitors, but you can control that. It could be a case that you pay for their solicitors' fees as well as yours, just to actually move the process along a bit quicker. There's various different things you can do, but at the end of the day, a motivated seller is someone that's going to work with you to a timescale that's mutually beneficial to get that deal done.
Yeah, that's the best thing about motivated sellers. You have to find a win-win solution for you both. You have to find the solution to their problem. Right, does anyone in the chat want to ask David a question? We've got about 10-15 minutes left.
Yeah. Well, while that's actually coming through, Matt, I just really wanted to go on to my next slide, if I may, and that's really, there are many tools out there. You can get a lot of online tools now to do the job, but various different things. But I've actually put together what I call my property investment matrix. Now, for those of you that are actually new to property, this is going to be a really, really useful tool. It's a tool that will actually get the job done, because at the end of the day, property is about numbers. And it's just like any investment is about numbers. You need to know that what you're putting in, you're going to get a return on your investment, no matter what that investment is. It could be, and a lot of investors tend to work on ROI, return on investment. Some people work on yield in property, and some people work on return on investment. Now, this matrix that I've put together, and a lot of my mentees use, actually gives you the breakdown on that. So I don't know if you can see from the slide there, but actually you put in exactly how much you bought the property for, what the market value is, and what you put down for the deposit and the legals and everything else. And it works out, once you go all the way through it, it gives you your return on investment, or what sort of money you're going to get back on that as well. And there's a couple of other areas there by where you put in how much your renovation costs are, and various different other things, and it works out all of the cost, and it gives you a return on investment. So if you're looking at a deal, this is ideal, because it will actually break down and give you what the return on investment on that particular deal is, because it could be a case that you also set the bar. You can set the bar, for example, on, you might say, well, you know what, I want to get a 8% return on investment, or I'm going to get a 10% or 12%. Yes, you want to get as much as you can, but at the end of the day, I think you need to be setting a reasonable bar. And the bar I work to is between 8 and 10. Now, in London, the average is about 4. Now, this is one of the reasons as well why I work a lot with a lot of my JV partners, and I work in my key area, which is in the East Midlands, because I know I can get them between sort of 10 to 12% return on investment there. And that gives them a good return on investment as opposed to buying a property in London. But this particular matrix that I've put together, that they get a copy of as well, when I'm working with them, it allows you to put all of the figures in, it crunches all the numbers, and it gives you back what sort of return on investment that particular deal will give you. Now, if you do want a copy of that, all you need to do is actually email me at info@earthpropertysolutions.co.uk, and if you just put in the subject line property investment matrix, and I'll send you a copy straight back. It's an Excel file, so I think most people now have Excel on their PC or Mac, so that's what it's in. And you should be able to just pump in the numbers and use it to your heart's content. So that's just a thank you as well, just for being online as well, just a little tool that you can actually use along the way. One thing that I wanted to actually mention as well before we do take the last few questions, Matt, and that is that the next property mastermind group is all about sourcing. It's how to source the best property deals in your area. Now, without a deal, you're not going anywhere. So everybody wants to get the best deals they can. And on this next property mastermind group, I'm going to actually share with you my top tips to actually get in the best property deals in your area. Again, it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. It's going to be about 4 or 5 slides about the top things that I still use today in my business, and I teach my mentees on how to find the best properties in your area. And they are very, very simple. You put these things in place and you'll be able to find the best deals. And you put systems in place. And you might hear me say that word a lot because I'm very, very big on systems. I love systems because when you get something working and it's working well and you replicate that, that's called a system. And then you have that working on autopilot, then your business literally it can work on autopilot. Because at the end of the day, guys, this is a business. You've got to treat property as a business, and it will actually do good by you as well. So have we got any more questions, Matt, that people are burning to ask me? Matt seems to have gone asleep. He's either gone asleep or he's not there.
Hello,
Matt. Oh, you're back. Good. Okay. So any questions that people want to ask?
If guys want to put questions in the chat, you're more than welcome, but this was emailed in earlier. Mark K wanted to ask, what's the best way to negotiate money off a deal?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Okay, now this is a little tip, so I hope you've got a paper and pen handy. Now, one thing I always do, and I teach my mentees this as well, if you're ever going to purchase a property and you really know in the back of your mind, you've crunched all the numbers and you know you really want to buy it, so you're there with ideally the seller or the agent. But the best thing to do is actually have them walk around the property with you. And when you're walking around the property, let's say, for example, you're in the kitchen looks a little bit tired. You might say to him, Matt, this kitchen that you've got in here, how long's it been in? And he might say, oh, it's been in about 10 years. Oh, really? So it probably needs updating by now then, doesn't it? And he's going to say, yeah. And then you say to him, Matt, how much do you think a kitchen might cost? And you're going to get him to give you a figure. Then what you do, new kitchen, right, £2,000. You write that down. And you walk him round, and then you come to the boiler, you have a look at the boiler, and he may say, oh, yeah, it's been in 8 years ago. It's been serviced, but it's a bit tired. And you might say to him, okay, well, yeah, maybe a new boiler. How much do you think a new boiler might cost them? And he might go, oh, I don't know, it could cost the best part of £1,500. Okay, new boiler, £1,500. So you get the idea. So you go round with the seller or the agent, and you're looking at things that probably will need some work done. New boiler, new kitchen, new bathroom, central heating, whatever it might be. But the key thing is here, you're asking them, what do you think it will cost? So it's not me saying to Matt, for example, I think a new boiler is going to cost £2,000 or £1,500. You ask them, Matt, how much do you think a new boiler will cost? He's telling you, and then you're putting those numbers down. And then when you come to the end of it, when you're going around everything and you've gone through everything you need to go through, new kitchens, bathrooms, windows, whatever it might be, you add it all up and it comes to a figure. Let's say it's £5,000. Let's say the property asking price is £75,000. So you then sit down with him and you say, Matt, you know what? This property needs a bit of work. Wouldn't you agree? He can't disagree at this point because he's already said that, you know, that you need a new boiler and a new kitchen. And it comes to roughly £5,000. So you'd say to him, wouldn't it be fair to say that really the true price of this property is not 75,000, it's 70, taking into account the £5,000 of the work needs doing on it. Now, he can't backtrack on that because he's already committed and he's giving you the prices and he's telling you that these things possibly need replacing. So that's a good way to actually get money off of a property. Yes, there is the old-fashioned bartering as well. You can try that, but this way never fails. I use this all the time when I'm actually negotiating, and believe you me, that can add up very, very quickly. You know, it can add up to 5, 6, 8,000, 10,000 pounds sometimes, depending on where you are, and you can get that off the price. You know what? Sellers are also expecting a little bit of a negotiation as well. And agents, and I'm sorry if there's any listening, always try and actually overestimate the price of a property anyway, because they build in like a buffer of what they believe a property should really sell for. A good key as well, another tool, is if you go on to Land Registry and actually pop in the postcode or the address, and you'll see roughly what properties are selling for in that street or have sold for in the past 6 or 12 months. And that'll give you a good key indication as well, because you'll probably find that it's overpriced by another 5, 8 or 10,000, depending on where this property is, than what the price that people are really willing to pay for that property anyway. But if you want a little bit of an edge and get a little bit more off, that's a useful negotiation tip that I use, and actually going around the property with the actual seller ideally, or the agent, and get them to give you what they believe the price of an item should be, and then knocking that off at the end. It's as simple as that. Hopefully that's answered that question and that's given you a good tip there.
That's a great technique. I mean, I've used that myself, and it has knocked a significant amount off my first core renovations, and my first part of that, the same technique was used as well. So I really hope you guys took notes of that. It's absolute gold. Have you guys got any questions in the chat you want answering? We've got a couple more minutes before we have to draw a close to this. I mean, anything you like. I mean, David's got 20 years of experience, so he knows his stuff. He's been mentoring for how long now, David?
Probably with the business coaching and the property mentoring, probably now for about 8 years now. About 8 or 9 years I've been doing this for. I mean, it's something that really people have been asking me for a long time, even back when I actually had about believe it or not, this is a long time ago, about 4 properties, because one of my friends that I used to work with, I still had my day job then when I had my 4 properties. And he said to me, he said, what do you do? He said, you tend to like, spend evenings and weekends doing stuff, and we don't get to see you this much. And I said, well, I buy properties and I renovate them, because I was doing it all myself at those days. And I said, I rent them out. And he said, well, can you tell me how you do that? And that's really, Martin was my first mentee when he said to me, can you tell me how you do that? Because, we all want to know how someone does it, and it's all about the people that come before us can teach us so much. And sometimes they are simple things like, your parents teach you to tie your shoelaces. We wouldn't know what we don't know until we know what we know. And this is where someone like myself can actually maybe give you some of my knowledge and wisdom and experience. As I said before, we're going to have a lot of experts over the coming months as well that's going to come on this property mastermind event. But bear in mind, guys, as I said, this is about you. This is not about me blowing my trumpet. It's not about the experience and knowledge I've got. It's about you asking the questions. It's about you getting the answers to the burning questions you have. How do I? Where do I? Can I? Things like that. Ask those questions, because that's what we're here for. I don't know everything. There will be times that I just say, sorry, I don't know, but I'll get the answers to those questions, and we will find them. There be an expert, and there's a load of experts out there that we're going to be having over the coming months on these property mastermind events. So you got any other questions come through there, Matt?
Hey, in terms of questions, we've got a few emailed in earlier. I'll just pull one of them up.
Yep.
So this is asked by Phil K. Is it best to buy a concrete or a brick-built property?
Concrete or brick built? Oh yeah, that's a really good question. Concrete or brick built? Well, I have not bought any concrete properties. Maybe I bought properties that have actually had a concrete foundation and infrastructure. So what I'm looking for, if you like. You might have seen these properties when you've been abroad, when you go to places like Spain, things like that. They tend to put up like a hexagon, or not a hexagon, a square of concrete, reinforced concrete, and then they build the bricks in between those. I've bought a couple of those. Hopefully that's what you mean by a concrete property. But majority of my properties are brick built. I've got a few timber frame properties as well. Say few, I've got 2 actually, 2 timber frame properties, but the majority are brick built. I mean, the most common ones are brick built properties, your bricks and mortar, as they say. Put your money in bricks and mortar. And they tend to be the most flexible ones as well, because with something like a concrete property, they probably have certain structural elements to them that you cannot move. A brick built property, you can knock down walls, you can maybe have to put up an RSJ and give some sort of stability to something that you've taken away, but you can tend to move walls around, take walls down, internal walls, things like that, or chimney breast if it's an older property. So I tend to prefer brick built property, but again, there are pros and cons for both of them. Obviously, one would say that a concrete property, because it's normally reinforced concrete, that's more structurally sound. Again, depends where you're living in. If you're living in LA or San Francisco, you probably need something like that because of the earthquakes, but lucky enough we don't have them here in the UK. But it's one of those sort of things that I think the majority of the properties that you're going to find here, unless it's going to be some sort of high rise or flats or things like that, you're going to tend to buy normally brick built properties. Hopefully that answers the question. Is there any follow-on from that, Matt, at all?
I think it comes down to insurers, really. I don't suppose it matters what it's built out of, as long as it's built to last. I mean, Stonehenge, for example, it's been there for thousands of years. I mean, the properties that I've bought have all been 50 plus years old, so they're built to last. I mean, as long as it's not built out of cardboard, I'm sure we'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Any more questions in chat before we call it a day here?
Has any more been emailed in as well? Because I'd like to, just to go through those as well. I don't want anybody that maybe just be listening and that's very shy, that's just, sent their questions in and doesn't get answered. So if there's any more questions that have been emailed in, Matt, please do ask those now, and we can obviously get through those.
Sure, yeah. This came in from Malcolm earlier. He asked, what's the benefits of buying from auction?
Auctions are one of my favourite modules. Now, we actually cover auctions in, I think it's module 11 on the mentorship program. What's the advantages? Well, the main advantage is that you get it there and then, not literally, but you obviously pay deposit, and then within 30 days the property is yours. Auctions are very fast moving. They are a good place to go. Even if you're not buying a property on that day, I always recommend to my mentees that you go to the property, sit in the auction, get a feel for it, how it works, speak with other people there, and you'll actually get a true representation of how an auction flows. Most people believe you can buy cheap properties at an auction, but one thing I've noticed as of late is that auctions are not the cheapest place to buy properties. I say that again. Auctions are not the cheapest place to buy properties. Why? Well, with the advent of TV and shows, a bit like Homes Under the Hammer and things like that, every man and his dog are actually now trying to go to auctions to get a cheap property. But obviously, people now are actually putting their properties into auction just to sell it to get a better price sometimes, rather than actually going through a private seller. And they know that they're going to get it sold quickly as well, because there's an abundance of people from all over the country in the room at that time that's going to be viewing their property. So you can have a property, I don't know, in Birmingham, for example, and you're going to get people coming from Liverpool, Manchester, Scotland, London, just to actually come and buy properties at that auction. And now they're even doing it online, so you can have thousands of people, not just one person or 4 or 5 people viewing your property at a time. So as I said, most people believe they are cheaper, but that's not always the case. On average, a property is placed in an auction sell for 10% above the market price. Can you believe that? 10% sometimes, up to 10%. Now, that's good if you're the seller, but obviously if you're a buyer, it's not always the best place to get a deal. Auctions are good, and you should, use it as part of your sourcing armory. Don't just actually, because sometimes there are some good deals in there. I'm not saying that auctions are not the place to go, because you can get some good deals in there sometimes. But over the years, I've been going to auctions, and any auction, they become more mainstream now. It used to be just for people like, in the trade, so to speak, people that were just property developers or landlords. But, even if you just wanted to buy yourself one property just as a pension pot, people go into auctions now because they watch Homes Under the Hammer. They think, yeah, this looks really good. I can get a property really, really cheaply and quickly. And they go to an auction. As I said, sometimes you can, but you must take it as part of your sourcing process. It's part of your sourcing armory. So you'd use this, you'd use your own marketing. But, coming back to the auctions, they are and can be sometimes, a very fulfilling thing in your sourcing armory. You need to fully understand really how auctions work. And so the best thing to do, as I said, is to go along to one, attend a few auctions, go around, ask the questions, and get to know other people that go in there and speak to them, because you'll find out these may be people that have been going like myself to auctions for years, and they know how to spot the bargains. Property auctions also are very much market led. In a rising market, auctions tend to be better place for sellers than buyers. So that's something you need to bear in mind. Are we on a rising market or we're in a downward market? What's going to be, is an auction the right place at the right time to buy a property there and then? It's in the fall or the falling of that makes it the best thing, and you'll find the best bargains at a property auction with the right approach. Discounts sometimes are anything up to 30% off of an open market price can be had at an auction. So yes, they can be good, but as I said, you need to be sniffing out the bargains. And if you're going to buy a property, set your numbers, set your figures. Don't go in there and say, I'm having that, I don't care what I've got to pay for it. That's buying with your heart. One thing you need to do when you go to an auction is buy with your head. Set your upper limit and don't go beyond it, because another property is going to come along. This is a business, guys, and you need to treat it like a business. So if you go to an auction, don't go in there with your heart. The only way you go into a property with your heart, if it's for your forever property. What I mean by that is the property you want to live in with you, your wife and your kids and your family, and it's going to be a property you're going to buy and live in. Then you're going to actually pay what you need to, again within reason, for that property. But this is a business, so you buy a property that's going to give you the right return on investment. So using that property investment matrix that you're going to actually get from me, you crunch your numbers with that. You do your viewing. Yeah, your viewing is probably your second to last thing you do, because you're going to get an online catalogue or a catalogue come through the post. You're going to say, that's in the area, it's a 3-bedroom, it fits all the criteria you're looking for. You crunch the numbers, you do your due diligence about what property prices are on there. You're going to go into land registry, you're going to get the sold prices, things like that, and you're going to get the guide as well in the book or online. And then when you go along to actually view it, it's just really just to dot the I's, cross the T's. Yeah, it has got 2 or 3 doors and 6 windows, and it's got a roof, and it's got everything that the pictures tells you it's going to have. But you're just going to see an empty house. That's all you're going to see, because the majority of these are going to be empty anyway. But when it comes down to the numbers, you got to know what your upper limit is. So when you go to the auction, set yourself an upper limit, 70, 80, 100, 150, whatever the number might be, and stick to it. Yeah, get it for as cheap as you can underneath that, but don't go a penny above it, because there's going to be someone else in that auction, I can guarantee you, I've seen it time and time and time again, that will pay more than the asking price for it, because they want it. If they want it, let them have it. There's going to be another one comes along. So the process of buying and selling at auction can be a very fulfilling one. It really can. And most people get an auction catalogue, as I say, and they get the catalogue and they'll have a look through it, and they'll actually just, this is what I do, they tick off a few properties of interest, and then they start to sort of run the numbers. So also make sure you have all of the finances in place as well. That's a key thing, because when you go to an auction, when the hammer falls, that's it. You are then committed by the fall of that hammer on your winning bid to actually go through with that deal. So make sure you got your finances in place as well. That's another thing. And also you're going to need to pay auction fees, and you're going to need to pay, I think sometimes about 10% on the hammer price as well on the day. So you're going to need to have your checkbook with you, or some form of finances you can actually transfer. But as I said, it's always worth actually having the full amount, because I've seen people get into hot water with, I've got the 10% plus the auction fees, and I'll find a way of getting the remainder in the next 30 days, and day 29 comes and they still haven't got it yet. So, and then you have to start incurring other fees from the auction house or whoever might put fees in place. So always have the full fee in place of your limit, your upper limit, and obviously have access to that 10% plus your auction fees on the day, that you can actually then go through and actually purchase the property and sign for it and everything else. So if you plan to buy an investment property at an auction, there are far better groundwork that you can do. You need to read everything before you go to the auction. And what I mean by that, that's the legal pack. You need to read the legal pack I would say once, twice, 3 times over. Also, get your solicitor to read it through as well, because they will spot technical jargon that you may not be astute to and understand. Things like flying freeholds. I mean, what the hell is a flying freehold? I mean, the first time I see that, I didn't have a clue what it was. But obviously, there's going to be technical wording in the legal pack that you may not understand. So get your solicitor to actually have a look at it. You can download it from the auctioneer's website prior to going along on the auction and bidding on the day. So say get it, download it, and read it and get it to your solicitor, and then query anything and everything you need to with your solicitor prior to going to that auction, because you do not want any surprises once the hammer falls and you bought it. That you've got to pay, the seller's fees. I mean, that's a common one that happens. And when you get to go through and you say, well, I didn't know I had to pay their fees as well. I didn't know that. Well, it's set in the legal pack. So make sure that you know all these things. And if there's something you don't understand, just print off a copy and sit there with a glass of wine, cup of coffee, or whatever your tipple is, and then with a big highlighter go through it and just highlight everything you don't understand, even if it's little things like flying freeholds, or you've got to be responsible for certain costs. Always query everything and ask the questions, because once the hammer falls, you bought the property, there's no going back, or I didn't know, or really, do I have to? Have I got to pay this? Yes, you have to. You're committed. It's a legal contract. So go through that as well. So there you go. That's my little rant about auctions. I say they are good, but obviously, you've got to really, sniff out those bargains. They are there. They're not as fluid as they used to be. They are a little bit few and far between. But if you really do your homework, you can find a good bargain. So hopefully that's answered that question about auctions. Are you still there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just want to add on to that as well about auction surprises. Make sure you do know the auction fees, because they vary from auction house to auction house. And if possible, do view the property. Don't just buy without viewing, because if you've watched Runs on the Hammer, or if you've experienced it in real life, people say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But do check out that house, because a lot of money being exchanged. If you get it wrong, it's a big mistake. It's not something you can wipe on the carpet, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, Matt. I mean, as I said, that really should be one of the last things, going to view it to make sure that it's got all the windows and doors and things like that. But yeah, definitely, Matt's right. You always got to go. Even if you can't physically go there yourself, get someone that you know and trust to go there on your behalf, because the last thing that you'd want, because you can't always see it, is the inside. You can do the Google Earth and everything else. You can look outside, and you can get a rough idea of what properties are selling for in that street or area by land registry. Sometimes when you go in and you see that maybe you've got a few floorboards missing, or it's been ransacked, and things are missing. You don't always get that on the auction catalogue, or it's got rising damp, or it's got woodworm, or things like that. So yeah, go and have a look at it. But that will also then help you to make your final mind up before you go and bid on that day. One other quick tip as well: if you are looking to buy at auction, always go with the opportunity to buy 3 properties. It's a rule of 3. So you're going to buy 3 and probably end up buying 1. Because as I said, you're going to set your upper limit, and as sure as things are, there's going to be someone there that's going to actually want that property more than you, and they're going to outbid you. Even if it's only by £100 or £1,000, stick to your limit. Don't go over it. Let them have it. You go on to your next option. It could be option 2, option 3. It could be a case, and I've done it before, I've gone to an auction with 3 or 4 properties in mind and come away with none. It's just because it wasn't right on the day, and I'm not going to overpay for a property. I have to set, like any business, my buying costs, and because if my buying costs are too high, and then by the time you put your overheads and everything else on it, there is no profit in it. So you've got to always make sure that you stick to those costs and have a few options when you go in. And as Matt said, obviously make sure that you cover in your costs, because it is part of your expenditure. Really, there's the auctioneer's fees, because they will vary, but you can get exact auctioneer's fees from the auction you're going to prior to actually attending. So you can ask the auctioneer, what are your fees? And there's other things, while we're on auctions, I've got a whole module on auctions, that I could talk to you about. I'm not going to spend all night, but there are online facilities by where you can actually not just like Savills, for example, or particular auctioneers, but there is a company that you can actually subscribe to, and they will actually what's the word I'm looking for, video uplink that particular auction, and you can actually have various different auction companies, and you can just sit in the comfort of your own home, and you can listen to these auctions, and you can bid on them as well. So that's something you can do as well. So yeah, if you want any more information about auctions as well, so I've got a whole module, part of my mentorship program. Just drop me a line and just put into the subject line there, auctions, and I can give you a lot more information about them as well.
Great. I will just point out as well, for those of you who don't know, a flying freehold is part of a freehold, like a balcony, for example, or a shared passageway that overhangs or connects to a neighbouring property. I just want to clear that up, because Dave mentioned it a few times.
Did someone send that in? What's a flying freehold?
I just thought I'd clear that up, because not many people have heard that term. I'll just put another slide up. If you've enjoyed this event and you've got a lot out of it, we were doing this once a month, and I've just put the address up. That's nottinghampropertyevents.com. And next month we're talking about how to source the best property deals. And this for me is absolutely fascinating. This is like a deal breaker, because you will save so much money just knowing actually know what you're looking for. And you'll save a lot of time as well, because you won't be messing around. It's all about your goals. You have to have a clear goal. So anything else you want to add, David? Because we have no more questions have come through.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, really, I just want to just finish and just say thank you, for everybody that's attended, and hopefully you'll be re-logging on next month to actually listen to our next instalment. And again, think about any questions as well. And please, if you want a copy of that property matrix, drop me an email as well. But one thing I always say to people as well, and I'll end on this note, is that knowledge is not enough alone. You need to take action. And as much knowledge that you may gain from this mastermind group, from reading books, from going on webinars, to whatever you do, wherever you source your information from, you must take action. Okay, so if you don't take action, you're never going to get anywhere to where you want to be within your plan. And one last quote, and you'll probably know by now that I like my quotes, and that is that whenever you don't want to go, wherever you don't want to go is where you will find it. So wherever you don't want to go is where you will find it. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your time and attending the Property Mastermind group. Matt, any last comments you want to add?
First of all, thank you, David, for your time today. You've given us loads of value. Thank you for everyone that sent the questions in, and thank you guys for watching. I hope you join us for next month's event. The website's on your screen now, and subscribe to our channel, because we've got a lot of content on there, and we're putting up a hell of a lot more in the coming weeks. So from me and David, thank you ever so much, and good night.
Good night.